Good evening. What a wonderful crowd this is, and what a spectacular venue. I'm. Thank you all for coming out. I'm delighted to be on stage with Rajdeep Sardesai, who I realized I have now known for about, well, at least we worked together about 30 years ago when we were young.
That's right, Naresh. First of all, thank you very much. Namaskar. Thank you very much, Namaskaram, for having me here in your wonderful city of Calicut. This is the most beautiful literature festival because it's the only one by the beach. So thank you for taking us out of the cold and dark Delhi to the lovely warmth of Kerala. So thank you very much. That's right, Naresh. I think we met first in the late 1980s when the world was a very different place. And 35 years is a very long time.
Exactly. Well, so unless they are lexicographers who compile dictionaries or avid solvers of cryptic crosswords, very few people around the English-speaking world are likely to know the meaning of the words cephalogist or cephology. But in India, of course, we're a notable exception. Thanks to Pranoy Roy and his decades of special programming on NDTV, most English-speaking Indians know that the word refers to the study of elections and voting, and that it involves both trying to forecast the outcome and explain the results. But even though we are familiar with the word cephology, not so many of us know the meaning of a related word, cephocracy. Some have defined cephocracy to mean a system in which the government is obsessed with ensuring that it has credibility by winning elections and retaining power through elections, but not necessarily with nurturing the institutions that are necessary for democracy to flourish. In the 5 years since Rajdeep Sardesai's last book, 2019, How Modi Won India, political analysts and academics have spent a lot of time debating how exactly to categorize India's political system since 2014. Sweden's VDEM Institute claims that India is an electoral autocracy. This describes a system in which citizens have the right to vote in multi-party elections, though they lack some freedoms, such as the freedom of association or expression that makes elections meaningful and free. The Economist Intelligence Unit classifies India as a flawed democracy. And the American think tank Freedom House claims that India is a partially free democracy. Rajdeep's new book, 2024, The Election That Surprised India, like his two previous books on Indian elections, offers a great deal of material to political scientists to make a determination of where exactly India now fits into which category. And for us ordinary citizens to recall the roller coaster ride we've been on for the past 5 years. Though Rajdeep also says that it's not a roller coaster, but like a train without brakes. Rajdeep, at the end of your last book, you declared that elections have always engaged and fascinated you. I heard one of your interviews in which you said that you remember the 1977 elections. You say that the fervor of an Indian voter reminds you of your other abiding passion, the cricket field, where victory and defeat remain unshakable companions. And yet, disconcertingly, large numbers of Indians now seem to believe that that match is fixed. And in the introduction to your book, you have a set of FAQs or frequently asked questions. One of them was 2024 a free and fair election? Tell us what your conclusion is.
Thank you very much, Naresh. Are Indian elections free and fair? In one word, no. Let's be very honest. You know, we must learn how to call a spade a shovel now. And the reason for that is, in theory, they are free and fair. In practice, they are not. Whoever is in power has enormous capacity today to misuse institutions, to use money power, to use agency power, and dare I say, to use media power to completely skew the election landscape. And this is true not just of what happens at the center, Naresh, in a general election, but in state after state. Those in power have learned the art of how to misuse power. The colonials have left us. They have replaced us with our new rulers. And that is really what I have tried to say through this book, that we are not a level playing field. If chief ministers are arrested just before an election, if the enforcement directorate only operates in opposition ruled states, if 80% or 90% of the media is completely, mainstream media is completely biased towards one side, if money power with the government is 100x of that of the competition, how do you have a free and fair election? So we will have to redefine what free and fair means. We are an electoral democracy in theory, but in practice, the truth of the matter is increasingly our elections do not have a level playing field. It is like a 100 meters race where one side is at the 80-meter mark and the other side is starting at the scratch. Let me give you one example. Just before the 2024 elections, in February, March of 2024, the income tax sent the Congress party notices dating back to 1993. In 2024, income tax notices were sent dating back to 1993 and their accounts were frozen. Now imagine if the accounts of the main opposition party are frozen before an election. How are you going to fight an election which you can call free and fair? And the election commission stands by, much like the Pakistani umpires in the 1980s, heavily biased towards one side. So I think there are fundamental problems. We are an electoral democracy in the sense, Naresh, that elections take place every 5 years, there's an election cycle. But just holding an election and saying one person, one vote is not enough. There are serious questions now over electoral rolls. Question that the government has still not answered. Maharashtra, 48 lakh new voters. 48 lakh new voters were added in Maharashtra between June and November this year. In the previous 5 years, 32 lakhs were added. Where did the 48 lakh voters come from? The election commission may well have an answer, but they must give the answer. So I think we are facing a crisis in terms of our public faith also in democracy, and finally money power. I mean, media we can discuss separately, but money power, the ability of those in power to literally buy votes now, where votes are available for a price, I think makes the whole process of elections that much more difficult to accept as a truly free and fair election, Naresh.
So let's break down some of the elements you talked about. There are three main ones, and you've detailed each one of them at some length in your book. So to begin with, there's the monetary asymmetry. One element that gave the BJP a huge advantage over the opposition was the instrument of the electoral bond, which was deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court only last year, though it was clear from the time they were introduced in 2018 that they were simply a vehicle to legalize corruption. Most ordinary citizens, though, were not very perturbed by this, it seemed. Why was that, and what are the other elements that contribute to this monetary asymmetry?
You know, you said that most citizens don't really care about this. You're right. Most citizens have become transactional. Most citizens have realized if the politician's assets are increasing 10 times, he's giving me 1,500 rupees, might as well take it. You see, in Maharashtra, for example, 4 months before the election, the government discovered the Indian woman or the Maharashtrian woman. Suddenly 1,500 rupees were being given per month. Now you can call it a bribe. But the voter is saying, okay, you're making 1,500 crores, I will take 1,500 rupees. So the voter is not troubled by this monetary asymmetry at all. In fact, some clever voters take money from both sides. So I think electoral bonds is one thing that you mentioned, which where more than 50% of the electoral bonds went to the government. So you have an election with a multi-party system, but more than half the money, official, this is only the official money, through electoral bonds is going to one side. Think about the unofficial money. Electoral bonds are only tip of the iceberg. The real money comes through the various, what I call rent-seeking political economy in this country. You want to build a road? There is a certain percentage that you have to give to the politician and his favored contractor. That's how the real money is made. This is the electoral bonds total amount is only a fraction of the amount that is being spent on an election. I have a politician from Maharashtra. He refused to divulge his name. I cannot divulge his name therefore. But told me that he spent 45 crores for a Vidhan Sabha election. 45 crores. So I said, where did you? He said, this was necessary for me to completely capture the system. So we have a capture of the system going on at the moment. Through this sheer money power, 45 crores for a Vidhan Sabha election. So imagine how much must be spent on a Lok Sabha election. And therefore, if I spend 45 crores, imagine the return of investment I want in the next 1 year. And that's where the rent-seeking economy comes in. Every project today has a rate card in several states of this country. And all the money from that goes to either individual politicians or a party system. Even Kerala is not immune to it. Let's be honest. Let's not pretend that Kerala today is some, because the left is ruling Kerala, therefore Kerala is free of corruption. It's there in every state. Cash is oiling the political economy of this. And cash. In a country where 8 years ago, all of us or many of us had to go through the pain of demonetization, cash is back and how? Earlier it was 500 rupee notes, now it's then 2,000 rupees. Now even that may not be enough in some places. So I think the avenues of money, real estate, primarily, just look at the number of people connected to the real estate industry who are becoming MLAs in a state like Maharashtra or Karnataka. There is the liquor industry which is feeding into it. There is the real estate industry that is feeding into it. There is the sand mafia in some parts of the country which is feeding into it. Therefore, it is becoming increasingly difficult for someone with minimum means to fight an election. Not impossible. I give some stories of hope in the book. There is a 26-year-old Dalit mother of two, Sanjana Jatav. She defeated the chief minister's candidate. She had to crowdsource her way. So it's not impossible, but it is becoming more difficult. You will have to be a Karodpati several times over today in most parts of the country to be able to fight an election and have the power to take on your opponents.
And then the second element you talk about is the misuse of state power, the enforcement directorate, the investigative agencies. And related to that is the concept of the washing machine. Tell us how Operation Lotus played out during the period in which you wrote your book and how all of these various things come together.
Naresh, the enforcement directorate has been totally weaponized. Just think about it, that are we saying that money laundering only takes place in opposition-ruled states in this country? Even average people will know that every time you switch sides, you get immunity from prosecution. Our home state, your and my home state of Maharashtra. And I've given a detailed explanation, including my friend Chhagan Bhujbal, a Maharashtra politician, who after a couple of drinks told me, he said, I want to sleep well at night. And the only way I can sleep well at night is I have to go and switch over into the government. And it is so brazen. All the Shiv Sainiks in Maharashtra who switch sides, suddenly the enforcement directorate is no longer prosecuting them. And think about this fact. 1 in every 3, please note this, 1 in every 3 politicians in a state like Maharashtra in the last 10 years has been in more than one party. So what is the level of, we used to have retail defection, now it is wholesale defection. and everyone has a price. So, I mean, this washing machine is operating in a manner that is so open and brazen. I think the difference, you see the difference between pre-2014 and post-2014, a lot of this used to happen in the past, but never so brazenly. Now we have become completely shameless in the manner in which we misuse the agencies. And the agencies have become what the police was to the colonials. Their private army. They act as their private army. And it is shocking that we have allowed this to continue to the point where the Supreme Court simply doesn't want to even intervene. I mean, that's the problem. The checks, and you and I can use the word washing machine. But what is being done to ensure that the washing machine is not allowed to function like a washing machine? Where the moment I switch sides, I am as clean as the Ganga. The Ganga has got polluted also. So I shouldn't say as clean as the Ganga. So has the scene in Calicut. But, that's the way it is. I think there is a serious crisis of our enforcement agencies wherein people are getting away the moment they switch sides. I mean, how can you allow, the criminal justice system is becoming an outrider for whoever is in power, Naresh?
Well, the third element that you speak about is something you and I know just a little about. It's the media abdicating its role as a watchdog in a democracy, being transformed into a lapdog, what Ravish Kumar calls the Godi media, and that memorable phrase. Your chapter on the media begins very dramatically with a personal story. Tell us about that.
I have a sedition case against me. And I have a sedition case that was filed in identical language against me in 6 states, all of them ruled by the BJP. Eventually, we had to go to the Supreme Court and ensure at least that all the cases were brought under one umbrella before one court. This was based on a tweet I had done during a farmers' agitation that I was covering. During that, in a live situation, there was this farmer who was lying dead on the road, and his family and friends told me that he had been shot dead by the police. Now, this is a live situation. I made the mistake of taking their word for it and broadcasting it in a live situation. I repeat, it was live. Later on, we realized that it was possible that the farmer had fallen off the tractor and therefore died, not been shot by the police. Now, you can argue that I reported wrongly, that it was bad journalism, no problem. How is it sedition? How am I acting against the state? And I am okay about it. Please think about a Siddiq Kappan from this state of Kerala. Please think of a Disha Ravi, a young 21-year-old climate change activist who had a sedition and was arrested and put in jail. Siddiq Kappan spent more than 2 years in jail for charges that have still not been proven. So I don't want to highlight my case. I am protected. What about a Siddiq Kappan? Who will speak up for a Siddiq Kappan? That is what we should be agitated about. Only yesterday, Naresh, and I have referred this into my book in some detail, the CBI closed the case against NDTV, saying that they had no proof of any misdoing against NDTV. For the last 8 years, Enforcement Directorate, CBI, everyone was at NDTV's door. Income tax. NDTV was eventually taken over by the person who seems to take over most things in this country, Gautam Adani. What happens to the last 8 years? The process is the punishment in India. 8 years after the company is taken over, now everything, sab changa hai, as they say in Punjabi. Everything is well. What about the last 8 years? And not just NDTV, Naresh, think about the small companies who have had raids. Young journalists, interns in NewsClick had their phones taken away, their mobile phones taken away, their laptops taken away at 6:30 a.m. in the morning by the special cell of the Delhi police. Surely it has better things to do. And all of us are just watching this happening. So NDTV, India's foremost or first news channel that was set up, is today taken over by Gautam Adani, and News 18, a channel we had set up, is taken over by Mukesh Ambani. And we are watching. Public is there, smiling. I mean, where is the freedom then that you and I mean, there are brazen, more and more examples coming out of this. Dainik Bhaskar exposed the government on COVID, on the bodies floating in the Ganga. Within a week of that, the income tax authorities landed and raided them. The BBC put out a documentary going back to what had happened in 2002. Suddenly, the income tax woke up and started raiding the BBC, or search and seizure of the BBC. I mean, public hai ye sab janti hai. People are not fools. But people are powerless. And my worry is that we have reached a stage, Naresh, where this has got normalized. That is the worry. Whether it is enforcement directorate and washing machine, whether it is the way the media is taken over, we have allowed it to get normalized. We meaning the entire sort of the democratic checks and balances that you expect in a system that allow this abuse of authority to take place. And that's where I think democracy is weakened. I mean, I still have hope for Indian democracy because we are the most diverse country in the world. I remain an optimist. But optimism also can only take you so far when you're faced with an increasingly imperious state.
Yeah, I'd like to sort of stay on talking about media control. You describe a very moving meeting with Siddiq Kappan's wife. Tell us about that, but also tell us about how actually the journalists on the front line are Muslim and who are most vulnerable, Muslim journalists and especially Kashmiri Muslim journalists.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, out of the 5 journalists who are in prison at the end of last year, 4 of them, I think, were from Kashmir, where you have a Public Safety Act under which you can be arrested and kept in jail for 2 years without any charges. Please think about this. Kashmir is a part of India. Why should a law be different for Kashmir under Public Safety Act where a journalist is kept in jail for 2 years without charges? And who will speak up for them? When Siddiq Kappan's wife came, I don't know if she's here today, but when she came and met some of us in Delhi, I mean, she kept saying my husband is not a terrorist. I mean, you can question whether he's associated with a political group, whether he's associated with Popular Front of India. How is he a terrorist? That you are arresting him under UAPA and keeping him for jail for 2 years, and then just as the court is deciding to order bail, you slap further money laundering charges. So, I mean, I think Siddiq Kappan, to my mind, Naresh, represents in a way what has gone horribly wrong with our checks and balances in Ali. You will give the same Supreme Court opened up on a Saturday for my friend Arnab Goswami to get bail. Good, he should also get bail. But under the law, Arnab Goswami and Siddiq Kappan are equal. There is no difference. Why should one person get bail and the other person not? You open up on a Saturday. And the great Justice Chandrachud says freedom and liberty is all that matters. Where was the same Justice Chandrachud when Kappan was going through Tariq pe Tariq? Where was your liberty? So what you said, the young frontline reporters are the most vulnerable. I have protection. I can go to a top lawyer. I managed to get Kapil Sibal to appear for me free. the young journalist cannot get that benefit. Who is going to appear? Kapil Sibal, to his credit, took up Siddiq Kappan's case later. But, system must be equal for all. There must be fairness and equality for all citizens. Why should Manipuris, why should women who have been raped and brutalized in Manipur, why should a video of them come out? Of the woman being stripped naked before the country wakes up to what is happening in Manipur? And how many people will march for Manipur? We will march for RG Kar in Kolkata. We will march for Nirbhaya in Delhi. Is a Manipur woman not having the same rights as a Nirbhaya or the woman who was tragically killed in RG Kar? You see, there must be equality. That the fundamental, and it comes to your first, free and fair. The principle of free and fair is equality of the citizen. Every citizen, rich, poor, has rights before the law. But we don't have it. So, I mean, and the government knows this. The government knows the vulnerability of the media system, and knows what to push, which button to push when, how to use the agencies to get people to fall in line. And you're right. If you're an Indian Muslim, in many ways, it's a double whammy. Because there will be those out there who will use the name to say, no, he must be somewhere involved. How? Provide the proof, provide evidence. So I think, it is becoming, for Kashmiri journalists, for young journalists who want to challenge the system. Only last week or 2 weeks ago, we had a young journalist from Chhattisgarh, body was found in a septic tank, Mukesh Chandrakar, because he was exposing the road contractors. I mean, who's going to stand up for him? The case will be forgotten after a few months. And there the person involved is allegedly a Congress leader. So it's not as if this is BJP Congress. They're all whoever is in power misuses power. Today you put up a Facebook post in Kerala against your chief minister. Let me see what is the reaction. Will the chief minister accept criticism? So let us not pretend now. They are all the same. I use a Hindi phrase, hamam mein sab nange hai. Only some are worse than the others. That's all. They are all different degrees. They all know how to use and misuse their powers.
In your book, you describe with the intricacies of media management of the current dispensation. You describe one gentleman as the third most important person in the Modi government. Who is this person and what role does he play?
You are going to get me into even more trouble. That's why it's good to be in Kerala. If I said half these things in Delhi, I would be in trouble. So it's good to be in Kerala that way. The third most important person as per my book is someone called Hiren Joshi. He is the Prime Minister's media in charge. He is the person who's the eyes and ears of the Prime Minister. And once you're the eyes and ears of Prime Minister Modi, you become a very important person because you provide people access to the Prime Minister. You decide who will be provided access, who will not be provided access, which journalists might be suspended for work that they have done. So Hiren Joshi he was an engineer, I think. Started off as an IT engineer professor from Bhilwara in Rajasthan. But today is one of the most powerful people in government. And again I say, it's not as if previous governments did not try to control the media. Now it is more brazen. That's all. It is now in your face, more brazen. You don't care about the consequences. Because you feel you have complete control over the system. So Hiren Joshi is that individual. I occasionally send him WhatsApps. But that's about it. I met him once at Hiren Joshi and I share a dentist. So he one day met me as he was coming out. One man, I'd never seen him. He was coming out of the thing and smiled at me and said, hello. I said, who? He said, you don't know me. I'm Hiren. I'm the Prime. I said, my God. But he is a very powerful man. He was in fact sitting on the same table as the Prime Minister in a recent, visit to Russia or somewhere. So he's now on the high table with the Prime Minister. You see, this government lives by the media, dies by the media. So the media is a very important weapon for this government to control minds. It's about controlling the narrative. I mean, after COVID, and I have a full chapter in this book on COVID, the question that should have been asked were never really asked. The World Health Organization says 45 lakh Indians were died during COVID. The government of India says 4 lakhs. Where is the truth? The government of India allowed a Kumbh Mela to take place before COVID 2.0 in Haridwar. We are now having the Mahakumbh. When the Tablighi Jamaat had a small event in Delhi before COVID-1, they were called Corona Jihadists. But you will not use any such word for Mahakumbh. Why? For the Kumbh Mela in Haridwar. When that Kumbh Mela, it is proven, led to a sharp increase in cases in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. And eventually we had to suffer COVID 2.0. Now, asking these questions would bring you into trouble with a Hiren Joshi. So that is where the power comes from. The power to control the narrative. No bad news. We are not going to give you bad news. We will only give you good news. If the economy is doing badly, we are not going to tell you. But when we become 5 trillion economy, we will beat the drums and we will go around the country. We will ask you, Tali bajao, Thali bajao. That is the problem. We don't want bad news anymore. We only want good news in this country. There is some good news, of course. Nobody denies it. This government has done some very good work on physical infrastructure, on banking reform. Every government over 10 years does good work. But we must have, as journalists, we must be allowed to have a column which says good things done, but also not so good things done. Now we are not allowed to say not so good things. We are not allowed to say emperor has no clothes. Because emperor is always well clothed. Changing his clothes 3-4 times, in fact.
And many of those pictures are on Twitter, and you've famously described this government as a government for Twitter, of Twitter, and by Twitter. And at the forefront of the party's attempts to mold perception on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is their social media cell, which is sort of grandiosely called the IT cell, as if it's developing cutting-edge information technology, but actually is sort of just tweeting perceptions for the government. What is your relationship with the head of that IT cell?
No, the BJP's head of their IT cell is someone called Amit Malviya. He has never won an election, probably never won even the school monitor election, but is still a very powerful man because he again controls the narrative. You see, Mr. Malviya once vetoed, I was about to do an interview with Mr. Amit Shah. Mr. Malviya went and told Mr. Shah, you cannot do an interview with Rajdeep Sardesai. And Mr. Shah listened. You can imagine the second most powerful person in the country listened to, who is he? Fourth most powerful? I don't know. Someone who has never won an election can tell the Home Minister of the country, you will not give an interview to this person, and Home Minister will listen. Mr. Malviya is these are all, and we in TV have made these people into stars. They come, shout at us on TV, express their viewpoints, and they become celebrities. TV celebrities. So we are partly responsible. Television in particular has turned into a circus. We are the clowns, they are the ringmasters. I think TV has played a huge role in some way in this sort of corrosion of democratic values, because if everything is reduced to a soundbite, then how are you going to actually have reasoned, mature, rational debate in this country anymore?
You have these astonishing details about how the micromanagement of the media proceeds, including the fact that this whole rash of TV interviews that the Prime Minister gave was actually produced by the PMO, was shot and edited by the PMO. How did that work, and why did journalists take that humiliation?
When I wrote the book a few months ago, someone who was close to the government said, we will take you to court. You have said that the interviews were produced by the Prime Minister's office. There has been no denial. No one has denied. The interviews were the cameramen, the editors, were all people from the Prime Minister's office. The journalists were just, that's why I said we were just sitting. The journalists who were doing the interviews were sitting. The entire interview was conducted through the Prime Minister's office. Now, what do you call that? Is that not media management? That the Prime Minister's office can then decide what they will edit, what they will allow you to put. Prime Minister did 81 interviews, more than 80, in the run-up to the election. In one in Tamil Nadu, he wore a vesti. Because optics matter, how you look. You see, you have to give them credit. Please understand, that's why people don't like, they are remorseless, ruthless, and relentless. They understand the medium. On the other side, you have an opposition that is disunited, dispirited, and completely in disarray. So they know how to use the medium. They are masters at it. They will edit your interview if they have to. It's the same theory, Naresh. If you remember, several years ago, Prime Minister Modi, then he was Chief Minister Gujarat, did an interview with Karan Thapar. And I was the editor of the channel. From which the Prime Minister walked out saying, holding a bottle of water saying, Dosti bani rahe. Now, I don't want to say that to you here today, but the fact is that he walked out of the interview. And I remember ringing up the Prime Minister and saying, sir, please come back, because if you come back, we will not use the story where you walked out. We will carry the interview as is. He chose not to. and the interview became a big talking point because he walked out. After that day, the Prime Minister decided, I will never allow any interviewer to control the narrative anymore. I will decide. That's why no press conferences, no interviews with inconvenient journalists, no questions can be asked. Even Donald Trump takes questions in White House. But in India, you cannot ask questions. If I ask a question, sir, can you tell me whether 45 lakh Indians died in COVID or 4 lakhs? I will have to take my bottle of water and go home.
So let me ask you a really hard-hitting question. How do you eat mangoes? Do you suck them or do you cut them?
How do I eat mangoes? I'm an Aam Aadmi, so I like my arm. But you see, that is how, if you recall, now we are talking about an interview that was done about 6 years ago. So there is a high recall value in asking this question, which was asked to the Prime Minister of the country, how do you eat your mangoes? Look, all leaders are the same. I went to meet Sonia Gandhi. Just before the interview, she said, I will not take political questions. So I ended up asking her how you and Indira Gandhi used to handle the kitchen. And I was also attacked for that. But what do? I go to the leader. Leader says, I will not take political questions. This is happening across the country now. Naveen Patnaik was Chief Minister of Odisha for almost 25 years, never had a press conference. Jayalalitha was Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu 4 times, I think. Never did a real open press conference. Neither does Sonia Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi prefers being on YouTube and telling us how to make chocolate. He goes to some chocolate factory, they will show you YouTube, what a lovely, oh, how sweet. You see, we have allowed these politicians to get away with it. And thereby undermining democracy. Democracy is about accountability. And yes, the accountability is much greater of the person in power. So whoever is in power, at the moment Mr. Modi is in power. To be fair, Manmohan Singh used to regularly hold press conferences. Today we call him Mauni Baba. He was not a Mauni Baba. Every time he went abroad, he took a press conference. Journalists could ask whatever question to him. In fact, I wrote a column once criticizing him on the handling of 2G. He met me a few days later at a public gathering and he smiled at me. He says, you have raised a lot of valid points. Imagine, compare him to what we have today, and you called him and discredited him as a Moni Baba and a puppet, someone who was ready to take all your questions. He once did a live press conference with us inside the PMO. But you will call him puppet because we want 56-inch strong men. We want to show muscle. Muscle is not shown by showing your chest. Muscle is shown like Gandhi was a thin man, but he had more courage than all these people put together. I cannot imagine in my life Mahatma Gandhi saying, I will not take your question, I will not answer it. Because he lived his life on the basis of truth. These people are all people who want to hide the truth from you, so they don't want to take your questions. That is the reality, my friend.
Rajdeep, how do you get your books written? You're out there in the field, you've got a camera. We've just established from people who wanted their books autographed that you do not carry a pen. How do you then, do you go home and write a diary at the end of the day? How does this work?
Yes, I for these 3 books that I wrote, 2014, 19, not so much 2014 because that happened almost by accident. I was out of a job, I had nothing to do, so I wrote a book. The only time in my life I had nothing, I was unemployed for 5 months, I wrote it. But both for 2019 and 24, I used to take notes. And I would try and write, and I go back to 2023 when I started writing. I would write 500 words a day. Not all of those words would make sense. They had to be eventually revised, edited. The election verdict was also very different. But I think I do make an effort, not necessarily with a pen, but I put it on a computer. Sometimes I put it, actually, I have a WhatsApp group called Research. So whenever I see an interesting article, whether it's in Scroll that you so wonderfully edit or somewhere else, I just put the article. I know I've quoted your book, your website a couple of times in the book. So I use these articles. I have one researcher who's also a friend. I'm not as lucky as Dr. Tharoor, who has many researchers. But the idea is that whenever you have something interesting, you keep notes. And the best time to write is 5 a.m. in the morning. So I used to write 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. I think there is no breaking news, fortunately, in this country, mostly at 5 a.m. Although one chief minister of Maharashtra was sworn in at 7 a.m. I mean, this is the only bizarre country where the president will revoke president's rule at 2 a.m. and a chief minister is sworn in at 7 a.m. But in Maharashtra, my home state, anything can happen. But you write early morning and take down notes as you see things happening around you. So I think I've been fortunate to have a little bit of access and just watch and observe what happens around us.
Fantastic. Let's open this up now for questions. So, are there mics that will go around? Yeah. Okay, the gentleman who's, yeah, okay.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am, go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We know a lot of what is going on and what is wrong.
Hold your mic little closer.
What is the solution?
Ma'am, I am not here to offer solutions.
We need them. We
No.
need morality, we need integrity, we need honesty. We need earlier, in the early days, the first thing was to be written on a school in the village even, jhoot bolna paap hai. Now it's punya.
No, but you see, please don't ask them. You see, this is where the media is asked to play God. As if we have the solutions. The people in power, you have voted for them for 5 years. You must have the power or they must have. And I believe, for example, we should have a right to recall. If your MLA or MP has not performed, after 2 years, you must have the right to recall. So you need innovative measures. But I don't want to suggest the solution. They must come from those in power. They are in public life. I am an observer and a reporter, ma'am. I tell you what is being there. I don't play God. I don't want to play God. Let the politicians play. We have a prime minister who says he's non-biological. I don't know how God... he must answer your question, not me.
Well, first of all, I would say thank you for the wonderful, what I'm to say, description, narration that you are giving about the atrocious scenario in which we are now in which India is going on because of the present ruler and even before that. But one conclusion that you have come to, that conclusion is, I feel, is basically true. That is, one class is the politicians and the other the innocent masses. So what will be the fate of our democratic future is the fundamental question that I want to share with you. Of course, you may not be a God man. You said as you are not almighty. You can't find a solution for all the problems that we face. Still, what you feel, how we will be in the position to overcome such atrocious realities that we see?
Sir, I am still an optimist. This is a wonderful country. And the sheer diversity. Kerala will not think the way Uttar Pradesh does. Uttar Pradesh will not think the way Bengal does. Manipur will not think the way Arunachal does. Our diversity is our protection. Remember in this election, that's why the title and the woman is there, election that surprised India. Everybody thought 400 par, 400 plus. But we are too diverse to be ruled by necessarily one leader, one religion, one party. And because of the diversity will offer a check and balance, I think, in the system. Eventually, people of the country will not accept a controlling mindset, is the way I see it.
What is your opinion on the narrative double engine? Here, double engine. Here you have a central government who says that double engine is the way to development. And they openly demonstrate that those states who are double engine will get all the funds and those who are single engine are devoid of any funds. Now the question is, this money is not coming from anybody's pocket, it is people's money, taxes. Now is this narrative being created to create a fear in the mind of the electorate that you better be double engine if you want development, otherwise you are finished? What is the whole idea behind this narrative?
Your question has the answer. It is exactly that. Imagine the double engine means effectively what you said. that if there is a same government in Delhi and in a state, it will get special benefits. Now, you have to treat every state equally. How is it that when Gujarat gets flooded, immediately the money is made available, but when it comes to a Himachal Pradesh, the government there claims that they are struggling to get the same funds from the center. And you mentioned taxes. The middle class is taxed so that you can provide freebies at election time. But I think there is a problem. Double engine is, according to me, anti-democratic. It's anti-federalism. Every state in India must be treated equally, whether you're in Kerala or whether you're in Kashmir. I mean, that is the very basis of our democracy. So I agree with you.
Sir, here. So, good evening, sir. So, I have actually read 2 of your past books and I plan to buy the new one also. So, I think the election of 2024 has managed to disappoint everyone across the political aisle. The left was disappointed, the Congress was disappointed, heck, even the BJP was disappointed in that sense. So, I guess since it's actually Mr. Modi's 3rd term in power, do you think why people chose him as a prime minister? Is it because he has the perception of getting things done, or is it because he is seen as the lesser evil among the other politicians?
No, I have often said Mr. Modi's biggest asset is the opposition. You know, the state of the opposition makes Mr. Modi look even better than he is. Please think about it in Delhi just now. 6 months ago, Aam Aadmi Party and Congress are fighting the election together. Today, Congress is saying Aam Aadmi Party is anti-national and corrupt. And Aam Aadmi Party is saying Congress must be thrown out. You see, public is not a fool. Mr. Modi's brand value today has gone down compared to 2014 because many promises have not been met. But even so, there are many people who believe he is the better than the other side. You see, Rahul Gandhi has never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. I mean, you know, you're not going to win India by fighting an election in Wayanad. Honestly. You're going to have to take on the BJP in the Hindi heartland. That's where the BJP is at their strongest. You're going to have to build an organization to match the BJP. I mean, the BJP has worked hard at building this organization. From a party of 2 MPs to where they are today, they've worked hard. Ideologically, many of their cadres are committed. Congress wants power. Rahul Gandhi says power is poison. So I think you're right. In a way, the opposition is an asset, but it is not easy being an opposition leader in this country, let me tell you. One day the ED knocks on your door, next day income tax knocks on your door. How do you work as an opposition leader in India also? So, you know, let me not be too harsh on the opposition also, even though I maintain that we need a better opposition. I said this the other day and I got into trouble, but India is caught between a despot and a dynast. We need better. India deserves better. That's my belief. This is a great country that deserves a better quality of political leadership than what we have. Now don't get me into trouble over that.
Sir, it's a great pleasure to hear your immeasurably valuable observations. Sir, I am a senior young man at the age of 77. So far, I could never hear a journalist speaking such a undeniable truth openly. Let me congratulate you for this boldness. Apart from that, one point I should like to get clear from you. All your observations, everything is fine. But one main important aspect of this whole problem is not been exposed. That is the caste side of this corruption. See, it is the Brahmin Baniya group that is corrupted and selling and destroying its whole country. This due to caste. BJP is after all a Brahmin Baniya caste party, and the Congress, the mother Brahminical party, CPM, CPI, all Brahminical parties. And so this caste aspects of this corruption, the destruction of this country is not mentioned. Will you please explain it?
So first of all, I think both Naresh and I come from Mumbai, so we see the sea and we feel that we can speak more openly because we are in Kerala. I maintain I could not say some of these things sitting in Delhi as openly. That's a credit to the people of Kerala that you allow people to speak so openly. And credit to, but your question on caste, sir, let's not get caught in this Brahmin Baniya trap as if Brahmins and Baniyas are the only people corrupt. Are you telling me that the government of Mayawati and the disproportionate assets that she made on the basis of Dalit empowerment should not be looked at? Mr. Lalu Prasad and his fodder scam. Corruption is now endemic in our system. And the root of it is elections. The cost of elections is now so prohibitive that once you get elected, you have no option but to return on that investment. So let's not bring caste into it. There are other aspects of caste we can look at. Certainly, empowerment, inequalities, income inequalities. I mean, we haven't addressed what is the biggest challenge for any government in India? 10% of Indians control 70% of our wealth. How is that ever going to change? I mean, one of my chapters in the book is called Ye Adani Ki Sarkar Hai. So I think those are the aspects we need to look at. I think the caste dynamics are a bit overplayed now. Yes, they matter at election time. You vote according to your caste, you don't cast your vote. But I don't want to equate it to corruption.
Hi, Rajdeep. I've been watching you since I've been born, I guess. My parents are the quote-unquote liberal version of of a typical Indian family. So they watch India Today because of you also. You're the face of India Today, for them, at least. And for a lot of people I know. And so watching election coverage in there, also, I have seen a lot of times when I have felt so unfair questioning from your own anchors, not just Rahul Kanwal because he is infamous, but also from other people where when BJP won Haryana and the question was, oh, you divided it between caste. And there was never something like that when BJP was not doing as much as expected before in the Lok Sabha election. And your own India Today conclave, your own top person said, media's point is not to question the government. Like, it was literally said, our problem is not that, we are not opposition, our point is not to do that. So I just and then you come here and you speak so much. Is that how can you keep doing it? Like, how can you play both sides, I think?
Good question. Very good question. You see, I am on a sabbatical at the moment. So I am not, and I don't have a contract. I haven't gone on TV since the 1st of December. So I can feel liberated in a way to speak my mind. But I must be fair. I've not been stopped from saying what I want. What others say, I cannot control. If you feel at some stage I have not said what I'm saying here, maybe sometimes the constraints of a TV studio, maybe I need to do my show near the sea. But look, I think the media must play the role of the opposition, not of the opposition, but whoever is in power must be told truth to power. Whoever is in power. So if I was a journalist in Kerala, I must ask the questions of Mr. Vijayan. If I'm a journalist in Delhi, I will ask it to Mr. Modi and Kejriwal. If I'm in Bengal, I'll ask it to Mamata Banerjee. I think we must have the power to tell the truth to power. Does my organization do so? I think it is still one of the few places where the very fact someone like me can survive is a good sign. What the future holds, ma'am, I don't know.
Unfortunately, we're right all the way out of time. We've got 35 seconds left. I'm sorry, sir, we'll have to wrap it up here. Rajdeep Sardesai, thank you so much for being so honest and incisive
Thank you.
in your assessment of the media and what is wrong with Indian democracy. Thank you all for coming out. Run out and buy Rajdeep's book and get him to sign it.